Hello, it's Billy Tutko here from T3 and Jon Buehler, and your company's name officially is?
Well, it's Suncoast Defense Consultants, but I
Suncoast.
teach with you more than I do the private classes, but that's, about it for my business.
Yes, so Jon teaches on his own, and then we've been doing a lot of collaborating here lately, and the plan, now that I've got my back done, once I'm totally healed up, is to collaborate even more, honestly. Especially our weekend classes, our larger classes and stuff, to really push those things. So just real quick, most everybody knows my background, but I did 8 years in the United States Navy as a Navy corpsman, combat medic. I spent 8 years with the Marine Corps pretty much. Everything after boot camp and Corps school was with the Marine Corps. And then I've done various security work over the next 18 years, roughly. I did security work before I went in the military, and then while I was in the military, I did some security work. 6 of that was as a school guardian at the schools here in Florida, which it is a job that I did love. And then Jon's background.
Yeah, I was a cop in Modesto, California from 2010 1978 to 2010, so 32 years out there. 5 years in the car, 6 years on motors. And then 17 years working homicide investigations. And then the last 4 were as a PM street sergeant because I used my mouth more than I should have, and they didn't like that, so they banished me to nights, which was
Banished you
okay
to
with me.
nights. Yeah.
But yeah, that was it. So it had a lot of fun, a lot of interesting things. So
Awesome, good to go. Jon's a great guy. I love working with him. We've taught a lot of classes together. We've been to some classes together too, and we're going to be doing more of that too.
Oh, yeah,
going
absolutely.
to different classes and stuff. But one of the things that I wanted to hit today with Jon here, because he has such a great experience, is our home defense. We get a lot of questions about home defense, and I really wanted to see. And us to discuss home defense today and our home defense options as far as firearms and some of the different components of home defense, and really kind of give everyone an idea of some good home defense practices. Do you want to start with firearms? Does that sound good?
Well, we might as well start with firearms. A couple quick anecdotes, real quick. Home invasion robberies, intrusions in the middle of the night are fairly rare unless you're dealing dope out of your house or you've got family members that are part of a criminal street gang. Those are really in California. And Modesto is Central California. It's below Sacramento. It's east of San Francisco. When I left, it was the 5th most violent per capita city in the state. It was Oakland, Richmond, Vallejo, Stockton, Modesto, San Bernardino, Compton. I think it went down from there. So we were not very big, 210,000 people, and our police department was only like 288 cops. So we weren't really big, but we did have a lot of violence. So that made the excitement raise up quite a bit. Of all those crimes that we had, all the violent crimes we had, I can only remember 2 where homeowners actually ended up using a firearm to defend themselves. One, 2 gang members came in through a kitchen window to, we assume, kill the teenage son of this homeowner. He ended up gunning them down. And it was a justifiable homicide. There was a little bit of friction at the DA's office. One of the prosecutors wanted to charge him, but luckily that got overruled. And then we had another one where a guy came home from Thanksgiving dinner, and somebody had broken into his house. He went to investigate. He probably should have stayed in the driveway, made the 911 call, but he ended up shooting 2 guys in his house. That got a little bit dicey for him too. The same prosecutor that wanted to prosecute the other guy wanted to prosecute this guy, but luckily the other votes were no, he was a homeowner, maybe should have waited in the garage, but It is what it is. So that's kind of what my experience was on this when it comes to that.
No, and yeah, in general, like he stated, the home invasion stuff is not happening unless you're involved in some shady things. However, it does happen from time to time, and people are fearful of home invasion type stuff. Also, you got to be aware of your own, are you carrying lots of money? Are you a business owner? I worry because I have a large firearm collection, and people know that. If they're willing to rob a convenience store for $20, what are they willing to do for a large firearms collection?
Well, they're only going to come after you if they've never seen you shoot.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things where we got that going on.
Yeah, I generally say they either pick the worst lotto ticket or They know, and if they know, they're probably coming 3 or 4 armed heavy.
Well, and this is the thing that you got to be cautious of. We were talking about it before the camera started rolling here. There was a couple that were shopping over at the Cortez Walmart here a few years ago, and they're sporting the ladies and men's Rolex, and they get into the, I don't know, Mercedes, whatever they were driving, and they drive home. Well, they were targeted by 2 guys that were in the store. Those guys followed them home. They weren't aware of their surroundings. They weren't paying attention to their mirror. They pull into their garage. These guys converge on them, rob them at, gunpoint in their garage. And this is what you run into if you're not paying attention to your surroundings. Had a family member one time, she won about $14,000 at a casino, at an Indian casino in Minnesota. She went home. Guys came back later that night to try and get that money. They didn't get it. But these are the things that if you're in public and there's anything that seems like it might put you in a position to be a target, you got to be paying attention to your surroundings. You don't drive home. Drive to the police station, a well-lit area, something like that, but you don't go home if you're being followed.
Yeah, and there's been a couple more from the casino here in Tampa where people were followed home. Also, too, that's important because they weren't really in their house. They weren't waiting until the people got home all the way. They were doing it in that transitional, as they're coming out of the vehicle going to the home, which changes things really from like when we're really talking about home defense.
Right.
But it's always something to be aware of and to think about. And it's always important to be aware of our surroundings. Like, we have to pay attention to things that are going on around us. And have to pay attention to if someone's following us in Walmart or if someone's following us home, maybe.
Right.
If you get out, you get on those back roads or you get close to your house, just paying attention to who's behind you. If there's a car that looks like it's following you, maybe take a couple turns, see if they continue with you. That way, you're not just going straight to your house. And if you have any fear of it, hey, take a different route. Go to a law enforcement police station, sheriff's office, and whatnot, and call 911 if there's an issue. Don't think, oh, it can't happen to me, because it can. And most cops and would rather have a call out for something and it be proven that it wasn't than you not call and then something bad happen.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So, and I mean, most of the guys want to do stuff. They want to protect the community. So give them their opportunity to do that. Now, let's say if something does, if we're talking about just our firearms, we really have 3 categories, I guess. One would be like a rifle. I'm going to also put like AR pistol in there. Our second category would be a handgun. And then our third category would be a shotgun. So those are generally the 3 firearms that I get people talk to me or ask about the most. A lot of my students recently have really wanted pistols for home defense, which is very interesting. And not that you can't defend your home with a pistol, but it is a little more limited than like an AR rifle or an AR pistol or a shotgun as far as firepower. So it's something to think about. But honestly, part of the thing is whatever the gun is that you practice with the most and that the best is probably going to be your best bet on that.
Well, and that goes along with, people, they make noise about shotguns. They think the shotgun is the salvation to all their problems because they have this impression that when you fire a shotgun, your pattern spread is going to be measured in feet. And it's really not at conversational distances, at interior home distances. The pattern will expand about 1 inch per every 3 feet it travels coming out of the muzzle of the shotgun. So it doesn't, it doesn't spread out that much. You could shoot a guy at 10 feet, the pattern is going to be 3 inches. Okay, well, that's not a lot. So you can't just point and shoot, which is what everybody thinks. Oh, I don't even have to aim. Well, they put a bead on that barrel for a reason, and you are going to have to use it. And then also you've got, a problem with ammo choices. Now, if I was going to use a shotgun for home defense in my house, I'd probably put birdshot in there. And for the simple reason it's not going to over-penetrate. But at the distance you're talking about where you're going to use a shotgun in the house, if a violent offender is charging you, he's armed, you've flipped on a light switch, you've illuminated him with a light, a shotgun, you're probably going to want to have a light on the forearm, something like that, because we don't shoot at shadows or movement or voices. But if you've identified a threat, he's not backing off, he can see that you're armed. Birdshot charge in the chest is probably going to change his desire for the rest of the evening, and then you're going to be able to resume what you're doing. But
yeah, no, yeah, I agree. So there's the three different kinds of ammunition: birdshot, buckshot, and slug. You know, birdshot, you're going to get the least amount of penetration, over penetration into other buildings and other rooms and stuff like that. Then the double-aught buck will be next, and then the slug is where you really have to worry about getting into, you know, maybe a neighbor's house or something like that. I mean, that's a big nasty piece of metal, and it carries a lot of energy with it, and it doesn't disperse that energy very quickly.
Right.
So you're looking at more over penetration with the slug for sure. I generally would keep double-aught buck or birdshot into my home defense shotgun if I'm gonna run one. And then also too, like what we're talking about the shotguns, you know, you got everything from your big like geese gut hunting shotguns, you know, 36-inch barrel, you know, single shot to, you know, you got your combat shotguns, your Berettas, your Benellis, and then you've got, you know, short shotguns. And I really feel like if I'm gonna have a shotgun for home defense, I want a short shotgun, honestly. And I personally, I prefer the pump over the semi-automatic, you know.
Totally agree.
Where you're racking it every time. Yeah, the semi-autos have come a long way.
Well, and you know, they're a lot of fun to shoot. However, if you're mixing up rounds in a mag tube, maybe your reliability is going to be reduced because of that.
Yes. And something to think about too now is they do have the short shells, which I do have some of them
slugs,
in the other rooms. Mini slugs, mini birdshot, mini double-aught buck.
Right.
So those short shells I find are really good for couples. And, you know, making sure you have the shotgun that will run those things is very important. But those short shells allow anybody of any age to really shoot a 12-gauge shotgun, because when you run those short shells, they are a lot less energy, and you're going to get less over penetration with that also.
Right.
So those are a very viable option. I would probably personally set up one of the Mossberg, like the little shockwaves with some, you know, if you can have, you know, the Mossberg shockwave with a brace on it, and had some, you know, double-aught buck, some birdshot in there, that would be the way that I would probably go as far as a home defense shotgun.
That, as long as you got a light on it.
As long as you got a light on it.
Your hands are going to be tied up with running the gun. You want to have a light on the gun.
Yeah, and Streamlight makes the 4-in grip light for those. That's awesome. So that would be an option for you. And if I'm going to run a shotgun, that's more what I'm going to run. I do have a friend of mine that runs a triple-barreled shotgun. I did say that correctly. Triple-barreled shotgun, 12-gauge, and that's what he likes for home defense. And when he ordered his first one, he went into a local gun shop, and it was coming in, and the guy behind the counter, and my buddy told him, yeah, I'm here to pick up my triple-barrel shotgun. And he goes, no, you came here to pick up your double-barrel shotgun. And he goes, no, I came to pick up a triple-barrel shotgun. Go look for it. It's back there. And the guy came out, and he's like, I've never seen one of these before. And that is an interesting way to go with that. The big thing with the shotguns is just not having an overall too long of a gun.
Right.
And with the rifles too, if you're going to use an AR platform like a 16-inch barreled AR platform, you know, I would prefer an AR pistol to an AR, a full-sized AR, honestly, in the case for home defense. And what about calibers? What do you feel about calibers for the AR platform?
Well, soft point 5.56 or 2.23 ammunition is wonderful for breaking up in human tissue. You won't get the overpenetration that you would get because even if you experiment with soft point 2.23 or 5.56 on rodents like groundhogs, prairie dogs, ground squirrels, things like that, devastating on the animal, but the soft point allows that thing to break up a lot more.
Dissipate very quickly.
So that's, if I was going to use an AR in the house, all I would use, well, I have 2 mags that have soft point ammunition in them. They got blue tape on them. It's an SP on there, and so I know what they are. When it comes to the AR, I would want to suppress it, because letting that thing go in the house, if it's not suppressed, is going to be a little uncomfortable.
I like that you said that. So with the AR platform, with some of the other platforms, there's a big debate between suppressed and unsuppressed, and I've heard it described both ways. And there's a camp that seems to want a fire-breathing dragon that is just like rah, and it's over stimulating to the bad guy. And then there's other people that like, I want it suppressed, and and go ahead with why you say that you want yours suppressed.
Well, in no particular order of importance, number one, protecting your hearing is, a good thing to do, which is, you're going to be disoriented if you shoot something like that indoors, multiple shots. That's going to be pretty loud, especially if you've been around ARs, you know what they do. But over and above that, if you're thinking, well, the devastating sound is going to make the guy run for cover and, go jump in his car and take off, well, accurate fire is going to probably have a better effect than a bunch of noise. So and I won't disagree with anybody who decides they don't want to suppress it. I get it. You drive a different car than me, you wear different shoes than me. It's everything like that. We kind of have that rule that we have. We never insult a friend's gun, car, or wife. And so you pick what you pick. But when it comes to running the AR indoors, I would want to suppress it just to preserve the hearing and, be able to deal with that.
The other thing, and I'm going to say this, I have become more of a fan of the 300 blackout for home defense.
Oh, fantastic.
Honestly, I'm actually going to be getting the PDW from Daniel's Defense here shortly, and I'll put my Huxworks can on that.
Right.
And so I really like the 300 blackout subsonic for home defense.
Fantastic.
But also too, when I think about that, and yeah, there's part of me that wants a fire breathing dragon, like boom, 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 like, oh my gosh, clears everything out, right? But I have my wife and my dogs here.
Right.
Well, if I shoot a 5.56 in here unsuppressed, or even a 300 blackout or whatever, the dogs aren't gonna be able to hear me. The wife's not gonna be able to hear me. Like if you've got kids, I think it can lend itself to a lot more mass confusion, and no one's given commands, and you can't take control of that situation maybe as much as you could if you were running suppressed.
Right.
So I personally, I do feel like I want a suppressed firearm for home defense, because I'm not going to have ear protection on, and that way, I can tell my wife what's happening. I can tell my dogs. I can give them commands, tell them where to go, or what to do. And if I had kids, especially if I had kids,
right.
Because that's going to cause so much more confusion and noise and everything to the kids, and it's going to scare them even more than everything else that's going on.
Yeah, and that it depends on your environment, where you live, who you live with, and things like that. If you're going to have an AR set up to defend yourself in the house, and you don't want to suppress it, okay, cool, I get that. But you have a mag of soft point ammunition, and then you hang a set of electronic muffs on the gun, so you can throw those on quick, do the adjustment. One of the things, the advantage of a lot of the electronic muffs is you can actually hear better when you turn those on, gunfire aside. Yes. So that might help you out a little bit when you're navigating around your house and going from one point to another. But it's whatever you decide, can you defend it in court? Yeah. And that's one of the things that you might want to think about is, do you have a bunch of laser engraved stuff on your gun, like, Predator and, some, saying, cross my threshold, you're dead. I don't know, whatever you want to put on your gun. But the only thing is when you go to court and they bring that gun in as an exhibit, if they're coming after you civilly, because we like to think that you did everything legally and you're not going to be charged criminally, but when they go after you civilly for your property and you have all these, scenarios on your gun, well, how's the jury going to respond to that? So I'd be a very, very sterile gun guy when it comes to a gun you're going to use in self-defense.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my pet peeves about people that put like Punisher logos on their guns and stuff like that. I don't want to explain to a jury in front of a courtroom what the Punisher does, and what he's all about, the character and stuff.
We can explain it to our gun buddies, no problem.
Yeah.
And if you're watching this, you probably get it. But if you get somebody like my sister, great sister and everything like that, not a gun person, a little bit pacifist, not sure how she votes, but you try to explain that to her and it's going to be lost in translation. She's just not going to connect the dots on that because that's not what she's all about. She's watching Hallmark Channel or something like that. And we all know that if guys watch too much Hallmark Channel, they'll probably develop a yeast infection and then it's going to be all over for them. So you want to stay away from that stuff too.
Yes, which is funny because my wife's had that on a little bit because it's the holidays now.
How you feeling?
So I just go in the other room.
Okay.
It helps me a lot.
All right.
Or do grippers while she's watching
Yeah,
it. Try to keep my manhood a little bit. Get strong forearms. No, that's so funny. So we've got our shotguns. We've got like our air platform. Also, too, when we talk about rifles, you do get your pistol caliber carbines.
There you go.
Which again is another way to go.
Yeah.
Which is another way to go. And also too, the one that I have for right now, actually I have two. I have a CZ and a MPX. I do suppress both of those. So that way, if they were used in the home, they would have a suppressor on them. But they're 9mm. They're great platforms. They are limited a little bit. And you got to remember that the pistol caliber is going to be a little bit more limited with energy as opposed to rifle caliber. But it is a viable option. The main thing with that is, just like with anything, when I talk about self-defense and making self-defense shots, I'm shooting, reassessing. If there's still a threat, I continue to shoot and continue to reassess until they're no longer a threat.
Right.
So that's just important to get that in your mindset, not to just shoot once and then be like, oh, it's over with. You've got to shoot, and then you've got to immediately get back on those sites and reassess. And if you got to send another one, shoot another one, reassess, shoot another one, reassess, shoot another one. If they continue to be a threat, you have to continue to shoot until they're no longer a threat.
Well, and Tank, you think about all the times that we've had students up in Ruskin when we're doing the outdoor classes, and we run them on the MPX suppressed. I can't think of anybody that didn't just fall in love with that gun.
Yes.
Controllable, low recoil, suppressed, you got a light, you got an optic. It's just almost firearms nirvana, with the exception of the purchase price. Because they climb in price fast. When you throw a good optic on there, you throw a good light on there, you put a can on there, and then the price of an MPX just out of the box, of course, is kind of pricey. So that's a disadvantage, but what a great gun that any member of the family would be able to handle. Throwing a pistol brace on there, it's no matter what family member, they'd be able to run that gun.
Yes, no, and that's specifically one of the things that I like to teach and show to the students is, especially if they're not bigger gun people and they're not going to be shooting rifles regularly like AR platforms and stuff, the 9mm PCCs are a wonderful home defense option for them. And so that is something that is a great option for them. I mean, it just works out really well. And anybody can shoot those because the recoil is very minimal.
Oh, gosh. Yeah,
and you put the suppressor on and it becomes a joy. Even someone that's very afraid of firearms will shoot those and have a great time with them. And that's one thing that I've noticed using mine. And I know John uses his in much the same way. And I know he's had a lot of great success with his student shooting. Yeah,
they really like it. And it's the controls on the gun are the same as an AR.
Yeah.
So you can transition from an AR pencil barrel 14.7 pinned and welded to a SBR that's got a can on it, and then run right into an MPX, and your controls are essentially the same. Yeah. And it works pretty good that way.
So we went over the shotgun, we went over the rifle, and the PCCs. Now, they're not just available in 9mm, they're available in 45 ACP, they're available in 10mm. There's a bunch of different options out there. You got Strybogs, you've got the MPX, you've got the CZ Scorpion, you've got MP5s. I mean, depending on your budget, you can get really crazy and go down the rabbit hole. Right. But those are all viable options. And then kind of lastly with this, you're talking about regular pistols. And the one thing that I get with the regular pistols, I get people that want a pistol for home defense, and they'll pick the smallest pistol possible. And I try to educate them on why we want a larger pistol. what are the advantages of a larger pistol over a very small subcompact pistol? You're going to have a little bit better accuracy. The weight is going to help take some of that energy out from them shooting that pistol. You get a magazine. A lot of the full-size pistols, you can put a 23, 21 round magazine in. I mean, you could put like a 30 in, but let's not get crazy here. But as opposed to, a 10, 12 round magazine in some of the really small pistols. So I usually try to go with a larger pistol, a Glock 17, a Smith & Wesson full size, put a light on it, make sure they have a magazine that hold, and I know I have some leftover from the military about wanting to have more ammunition, and I have some leftover from the military of having a combat load on me, 8 mags or 6 mags or whatever, so I'm a little warped when it comes to that.
Product of your environment.
But I do feel a lot better, having a pistol laying next to my bed at night that has 23 rounds in it or 24 rounds in it, a light, an optic. It's a pistol that I can manipulate well. It's a pistol that I can shoot well. And I think that most of my students are better off with a larger pistol when it comes to home defense, at least.
Well, yeah, case in point on that, when you're carrying the gun, it can't be too small, but when you're fighting with it, it really can't be too big within limits. So one in particular that I've had 3 different female students really took a shine to was HK-P30L. It's double action, so first shot with the hammer down, the trigger will cock and release the hammer, and then of course it remains single action there on out. It's got a decocker on the back of the frame that'll lower the hammer so you can carry it with the hammer down. It's got a thumb safety on it, ambi, which is like a 1911. But the thing about the P30L that these students really liked is you can interchange the grip panels on both sides of the frame and the back strap. So you can make this thing very small. And I run it very small because I'm teaching people that have small hands. And so this is a gun that a lot of people like. Longer the slide is, easier it's going to be able to work the spring and run the slide itself. Shorten that slide down, you're going to have to push a little harder. So that's one that works out pretty good for a lot of my students. Another one is the Walther CCP.
Yes.
Got a thumb safety, but it's not a locked breech. It's got a gas piston, kind of like a P7, like a Hans Gruber gun. And so you can run that slide with 2 fingers. I've had 4 different students, female students, that have adopted that gun. They bought that gun after taking the class, and they like that. They are from Germany, I get it. So as long as you're not having a German plumber come to your house, you're going to be in pretty good shape buying a German gun. But those are 2 off the top of my head. The M&P series, we love those.
Series, which we love those. And I do love those because it does have, the extra small, medium, large, extra large grip.
Right.
Now it's part of the sides, but it's also part of the back.
Right.
So that really gives you a lot of options as far as grip size. And I find that I have more students, especially my female students and my younger students, that like the Smith & Wesson over the Glocks. Now the Glocks are great guns. And I mean, I've had, my duty gun was a Glock for 6 years. And I have a whole series of Glocks, but they are, even in my hands, and I've got decent sized hands, it's a little big. I like the way the Smith & Wesson feels in my hand better than the Glock. It feels a little bit better. It's just easier for me to hit the magazine release, and it just feels a little bit better in my grip than the Glock does. But we both have female students that really do like the Smith & Wessons.
I like the M&Ps,
Yeah, for sure. So we generally, pistol-wise, we want to stay with the fuller size pistol, have a light on there, have an optic on there. You can have a higher capacity magazine for that gun, which gives you a little bit more firepower. If you have multiple people, or maybe if someone's wearing a vest or something like that, you can put a few more rounds down and you don't have to change mags so quickly. And it's always good to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Right.
For sure. So we got our rifles, our shotguns, our PCC rifles and pistols, and then we've got our normal pistols, keep them with full size. So I kind of, when I talk about home defense, and I've been thinking about this more lately here, is branching it into branching into two different branches, right, on the tree. And the one is like we have normal civil service, we have law enforcement that are responding to calls and stuff like that. And then we have our branch over here where maybe there's some civil unrest, or, here in, Bradenton, Sarasota area, we have hurricanes sometimes, where you will get periods where they will not respond to a call because the winds are so high, because the danger is so high for everyone out there. So I try to think of those things in two different ways. And if there's still responding law enforcement and stuff, which is going to be most of the time at this point that we're dealing with as civilians, I want to move as little as possible. I want to really shelter in place. And then I want to get 911 coming to me as fast as possible. And I want to, put that gun on that door and wait, for a bad guy to come through that door and shoot them if I have to. But I don't want to go out and go searching through my house and stuff. And I've done a good bit of CQB and one-man clearing and, one-man active shooter. I did that for 6 years. And I don't necessarily want to be going out and clearing my whole house, right? Let the cops come, let numbers take control of that, think of them as a team, as a quick response force, as a QRF, they're coming to help you out. And why am I going to go out of my room or my bedroom or wherever I decide to hunker down and go through the house when I can stay there, defend my position, wait for them to come? They can clear out the house or whatever, and take care of the bad guy if they need to, if they're still there. It's just a lot of danger to take on once you go out of that door.
Well, and then you run the risk, too, of being mistakenly shot. So you make a 911 call. It's on a recorded line. So, we probably want to leave the profanity out of that, because you don't want anybody to listen to that tape later on and think that you were aggravating the situation that ordinarily wouldn't have had to get bad. But over and above that, when you make a 911 call, you want to tell them who you are, what you look like, what you're wearing, so that there's no mistake when the cop or the deputy shows up and they don't end up shooting you. We had one, I remember when I was a PM shift sergeant, there was a guy came out of his house with a gun. The dispatch told him to stay in. He thought somebody was out there threatening him. There was a track history of that was going on, so we knew that. But luckily, the officers that I had at that time, well-trained, and they were pretty sure he was the homeowner. They held their fire, but they could have easily shot him. And then, of course, he puts up a big ruckus. I show up, I'm talking to him, and I remember he said to me, well, is this going to happen tomorrow if I call again? I said, well, probably not from us because we're off, but I can't guarantee what the next bunch of cops are going to do. You might get shot by those guys. So you have to listen to what dispatch tells you. If they say leave the gun in the house and you're wearing your Barney pajamas, which I know you look pretty good in, Barney. And you walk out, with the Barneys, great. But make sure they know who you are and that you're coming out and you're unarmed, because you ain't going to know they're there. Because if they're coming to this house, they're parking 2 blocks down there with their lights off. They're closing their door quietly. They're walking up through the shadows. They ain't pulling up in front like it's a TV show.
On, yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of the things when it comes to how they handle things. They have their own way of doing it. You might not be aware of it, but they're doing it for your safety and to make sure you're going to survive. But you don't want to aggravate the complaint taker on the 911 call, because that's going to go out. And keep it calm, keep it clean, and it'll work out better for you in the long run.
Yeah, listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, every pistol that I have has a holster. And so even my pistol that sits next to the bed sometimes, that pistol's in a holster that I can clip right onto my shorts, so that at least I don't have a gun in my hand. Right. If I need to. I can put that gun in a holster and get the guns out of my hands, because I don't want a gun in my hand, especially if I make contact with law enforcement. They don't know who I am necessarily.
No, they won't.
So I don't want to have a gun in my hand if I make contact with law enforcement, for sure. So yeah, and it's very important to listen to what they have to say. For sure. So that's kind of us. If there's law enforcement coming, if we can get 911 and they're dispatching law enforcement officers to our home, stay in place. Well, what if you have kids? Well, that's where you have to make the decision, like, hey, are we going to go to the kids' room? Or if me and my wife had kids, are we going to the kids' room and then we're going to kind of barricade there and shelter in place there? Or are we going to try to go there and then go to another spot? Maybe there's a bathroom that's near there that's a good place to barricade in, or maybe there's a closet that's there. So just having a plan ahead of time will help with that. Essentially, what I generally do is I'm in charge of the gun for the most part. My wife is in charge of the phone. I'm going to have her get on 911 and call. If we were to have kids, she would make the 911 call. We would move probably to the kids' room and then barricade ourselves there and stay in that spot. And I'm going to have her right on my hip. I'm going to have her grab a hold of me and stay right on me as we go to the kids' room, and working those things out with your wife, your significant other beforehand is very important. And you don't have to tell the kids what the whole plan is, but it's good for the kids to know something and to understand something, that if there's something that happens, this is what you should do, and kids, maybe the kids are the first to know. So where are they supposed to go if something happens? You tell them to come to your room maybe, and then get you up so that way you can get up and then you can put them somewhere there and then barricade into that place. But just talking about this stuff beforehand with your significant other and with the kids, the part that they can understand depending on age and stuff, can help make things go a lot smoother should something happen.
Right.
So that's just important to have a plan and to kind of go through it. One of the things that I get from people is they want to go out and they want to clear their house. And what I generally do if I go to someone's house to show them like home defense stuff, I bring my laser trainers with me, and I tell them, I go into a room, a side room, whatever, it doesn't matter what room it is, and I pick myself a place, and then I tell them to come in that room. And they come in that room, and I show them how easy it is for me to hide and shoot them, and how hard it is for them to pick me up. And that's during the daytime, not even when we don't have lights on and stuff.
Difference between both ends of a funnel.
Yeah.
They're coming through the small end, and they've got a wide area to check, and you're at the wide end looking for a very narrow area because you know where they're coming in.
Yes.
And it's as simple as that.
And showing them that usually opens their eyes to like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go out into that big, and listen, houses are different too. I've got students of mine that got 1,000 square foot houses and students of mine that got 6,000 square foot houses. And, some of the houses, there's, 20 yards in the house where you can get a 20-yard shot on somebody in the house. So if you're coming out of a room into a large area like that, especially, you don't know how many people there are. You don't know what their capabilities are. I mean, you're in trouble coming out into that big area. You're a big target.
Well, you also run the risk, if you go hunting for them in the house, is that going to affect you later on? Let's say you find the guys in there and you made the 911 call, you're waiting for the cops to show up, and instead of staying in place in your bedroom with your gun on the 911 call, nobody's ever going to give you a hard time if they come through the door and you have to gun them down there. But if you decide you're going to go hunting them in the house, big house, and you end up gunning them down, are they going to attack you and say, hey, maybe if you would have stayed in place, this wouldn't have happened? And then the next thing you know, you're writing a check. So if it's not a hurricane and the cops or the deputies can respond, let them come. Give them all the information you can. You're not being a wimp by not going out hunting. Yeah. You're ready to defend yourself, but you have to think in terms of what's your financial future for your family. Are you going to risk causing a problem for them in the future if you do something that is cool in the moment, but when you get under the lights of a courtroom is maybe not so cool?
Yeah. And listen, if they take a TV or something like that, okay, they take the TV.
Time to get a bigger one.
Yeah. And honestly, any TV now, pretty much you paid a lot more for it, and you can get a much better TV for a lot less these days. Right. So, if it's property, man, let them go. Let them go. I just, it's not worth it a lot of the time. If they're not directly threatening or direct threat to you or your family, if it's not life or limb, I just don't want to. I don't want to have to shoot somebody, but you know, if I can avoid the situation, I'm going to try to avoid it as much as possible, for sure. It's a terrible situation to be in, and it's a whole lot of stress afterwards that it'll cause. Okay, so what if there's, emergency services are not responding? What if it's civil unrest, or if it's, a hurricane or a major storm, or what if it's like a power outage or something? People talk about, China attacking our power grid or something like that. That does change things a bit, but still, the most safe place is to hunker down and to not go out and venture out and try to go find these people or hunt these people down. Obviously, we talked about kids and stuff. If the kids are on the other side of the house, going to the kids and stuff like that. But you need to be very aware of what's going on. And honestly, if you really think about those kind of situations, pre-planning is a huge thing, and making sure you have good windows, good doors, good locks, good stuff. Trying to keep those people out of your house, or keeping from being a target. And I know that there's people that have generators and stuff like that. And in fact, during one of the storms a couple years ago, I had one of my NYPD guys have to hold somebody at gunpoint who was trying to steal his generator. They brought bolt cutters, and they were trying to get the generator after one of the big storms. And he held somebody at gunpoint. Luckily, it was after the storm, so law enforcement did come and within a very short period of time come and arrest the guy. But if you're talking about a civil unrest situation, or if you're talking about something like that, like, try to do the things to make yourself as least of a target as possible. And a lot of that's stuff that's way ahead of time. Making sure you have good doors, windows, locks, and stuff. Making sure it's harder for people to come up to your house. Even having a fence, having dogs and stuff like that will keep people out.
Make it a target they don't want to deal with. They want to go to an easier target. That's really the best thing that you can do preventative-wise. Yeah, because when I talk about people targeting, a lot of times I talk about there's personal stuff, and then there's crimes of opportunity, right? Like, personal stuff is my wife's ex-boyfriend comes to the house to kill me because he doesn't like me or something like that. That's a personal thing. Like, a camera's not going to stop that. The little things are not going to stop that. But when you're talking about just a crime of opportunity, there's no personal connection. If you have dogs and you have an alarm and the next door neighbors don't, that's going to make them go to the next door neighbor's house more than to your house. Also, too, not letting people know what you have. One of the things that I'm very aware of is with all these delivery services now for food and stuff like that, Amazon, etc. People are coming up to people's homes. They're seeing what's in them. They stop and talk to you. Maybe they're handing you food off and stuff. They see what's in your house. They see the things that you have, and that opens you up a little bit to be more of a target. So whenever I have food that's being delivered or anything that's being delivered, I generally meet them out at the gate. Right. And one of the things that I do, because I have large dogs, is I have my wife open the door and let the dogs out once they're getting back into their car, so that they look and say, oh my gosh, they've got those huge, big old dogs. I don't want to get bit by any of those dogs. Right. And so that's one thing that I do to kind of keep people from, seeing like what I have in my home and maybe thinking, this guy, it'd be easy to come back here later and get some stuff. So that's something to think about also. But during those rare times where we're not going to have service from law enforcement, keep everything as quiet and as down low as you can. And, there may be a situation where going out and defending your property would be the right call, but you have to be very careful of that stuff. And generally, I'm not going to leave the inside of the home at all. I'm going to stay in the house. If I have to do something in the house, I'll do something in the house. But I'm not going outside of the house to defend my property. Yeah. Can you justify what you were doing? Or are you going to have to explain it? It's going to be tough to explain to a jury. That's the big thing. And you probably wouldn't be charged criminally if you do things right. But there's always an attorney that wants to try and take what you got. Yeah. And that's what they do. For sure. Was there anything else you wanted to hit on right now? I think for this first one, this pretty much covers it. We'll come up with some more stuff. If you have comments, we'll take the good ones. The bad ones, you can roll those up
No
somewhere.
bad comments.
But yeah, if there's something that you want to see different, we both have a certain amount of experience that we can bring to the table for, especially if you're new to the guns. Happy to talk to you about that.
No, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.